Hello and welcome back to part 2 of this Scriptcase webinar. During this video we will be continuing on from where we left off with the styling of our applications. So far we've created various blank applications, control applications and a form application where we've basically applied simple CSS styling so that we can customize the view or looks of our applications as well as the form elements that are included in them. Okay, so within this video, we're going to go ahead and start off by creating a grid application. And if I choose here for the table, if I go calendar, I think that's a nice one. And then I'm going to go ahead and create. So the grid application is then created. If I go ahead and run that, we can see that what that looks like in its default form. And you see that I still have the previous form open. And there with our basic grid. So in general the grid looks pretty dull depending on the theme and styling that we've applied, of course, but overall we could always do with applying some extra features here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start by removing the chart summary detail as well as the search and just leave the grid by itself. Okay, and then I'm going to come here to the settings and vertical alignment to the top. And what I'm going to do is actually come back to grid modules here and set a 100% table width, which I already have, lovely, and go ahead and run that again. Okay, so the grid application is now nice, snugly tight up against the corners. And what I want to do now is start adding some new fields in here. So what I want to do is actually change some of these fields around. So what I'm going to do is first of all start off by creating some new fields. And if we have here start date, start time, end date. So if I come here to edit fields, we can then see here end time also. So if I leave those, we have here period. Let me place that in there also. We have recurrence and we also have the category. So let me add those in there. And if I go ahead and run that again, we can have a quick look at what that looks like. Okay, so we have then our period over here, our recurrence, the title, just the description, category, our start date time, end date time. Okay, so we need to adjust here the category. So let's go ahead and do that quickly. The category here, and I will apply an automatic lookup. And the select will then come here to the category table. And that will then display the category name instead of a number. Okay, so now there we go. Okay, so now that the category is there, we're pretty much ready. We have the period, recurrence. We can actually probably change these, but we'll leave them as they are. And what I'm going to do then is I'm going to start off by adding some new fields. So I want first of all to replace here the start date, start time, end date, and end time. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and add 4 new fields. I'll go next, and I'll go start time, start date. So notice I'm naming them slightly different, end time, and end date. Okay, so here we have underlines, and I'm skipping the underline as one word. And if I just go ahead and go create, okay, and I'll run that again, and what we're going to see then is the 4 empty fields that I've just created. Okay, and what I can then do is I'll come here to edit fields, and I will now hide the original ones. So here end time, end date, start time, and start date. And I'll run that again, and now we should be missing these 4 fields here, and they will be replaced by these 4 empty ones. Okay, so now within the events and on record, I can then start to define what's going to happen within this application. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to add a comment here, and I'm going to call this apply method styling. Okay, and then I'm going to call this one field styling, and I'm going to add another one. And this one will be called the method CSS styling. So I should maybe apply here field styling, and let me add there the apply also. Okay, so then below that, then I'm going to now call this CSS styling, and like so. If I save that, and I'm going to scroll down here, come to programming, and use the PHP methods, and I'm going to create a new method, and the first method is then called the field styling that I just created. And I will go ahead and straight away create the second one, which is then the CSS styling. And then what I can start doing then is start applying some code within each of these. So here for the CSS styling, I will then close and open our PHP. And at the top here, we can then just apply a style. And I forgot the slash there. And here, if I save that, and if I go ahead and run this, let's see what we want to then change. So here for, okay, yes, because now what's happening is, because we have here the method and there is nothing in this field styling here, it is going to generate an error. So I'm just going to add something in here. Okay. And then if I go ahead and run again, now we'll see that the method no longer presents an error message, just that it contained no content. Okay, so what we can do then is from here we can then see what exactly we want to style. So say for instance I wanted to style our header here. I could then inspect that and take here the class scgrid header, come in here into our CSS styling method, and then I can apply here some styling to that. So take that again. Paste that, and then here I can simply apply some styling. So the simplest background color, and let's just say it's black. If I can spell correctly today, say black, and I'll run that again. And we now have a black header. Okay, so we can actually apply any styling then within that method, and that will then apply to our entire application. Okay, so the more interesting part is now here the field styling. So coming here to field styling, I'm actually going to remove this because I don't actually need this here. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to start off with a variable called start, and I will say that equals our field start date. Okay. And then with that, I'm then going to take that again, and I'll say start date, and I need to change it so it's start date with no underscore, and that then equals, that will then equal, and if I add here, say a font awesome icon, if I say class, and I better open and close that so I don't forget. And here we want to use a FA calendar dash check. Okay, and then after this I actually want to come here, space, full stop, space, and then I'm going to apply here the variable I created. So basically I'm taking here the original field start date, which we have removed. I'm applying that to a new variable, and then I'm taking the variable, adding in front of it a font awesome icon, and then also applying that then to the new field. So if I go ahead and run that, and then what we'll do, well, what will happen is we'll start now to see one of these fields is filled in, and there we have an icon just before it. So I can add a little space there just to make it look a little nicer, because there's no gap there. And we have our start date with a calendar icon and the actual date of our field. So okay, so I can continue on doing that, and say for instance I could then add the end field, and if I go ahead and copy that, and there we have then our end field, and then of course we could add extra fields in there as well, which we'll do in a moment. So first of all, that is our first two fields, and we want to apply then the same basically to our end time and end date. So I can quickly do that here. We just copy and paste these, and then we can just change here the variables that we have here. So start end, date end, and just course start, not end. Okay, and this is then end time. And end date. Okay. End date and start date. Okay, and we need to then update our variables. Okay, and then we can just go ahead and run that again, and then we now have these 4 fields, all with calendar icons and the date and time displayed. So end time, so date start, date end, time end, that should be really. Time end, and here end time. Okay, and that's corrected. Okay, it looks better as well. And then we have our four fields filled in. Now, the main reason why I'm actually creating the new field and applying that there is so that the original data will remain true. Okay, so if I start making changes to the data, then when I start passing that on to other forms or applications, then the data will basically change according to what you place in there. So in that case, when you'll pass that along, it would include the font awesome code here, which is not really ideal. So what we want to do then is basically create a new field, apply the data or the modification to the field there, and that way the original data will remain original and the same. Okay, so the next thing I want to do is basically add an if statement in here. So what I'm going to say is if recurrence equals yes, then we're going to add first of all an icon to the recurrence field. We're going to say yes or no. So in this case, I'm actually changing the data of the field within the grid application on runtime. Okay, so that's a very important item to note there. So that if we actually make this change now, and I then want to use that specific field and pass that on, it will then cause issues. Okay, so to resolve that, of course, we create a dedicated field. So as we see here, we now have the recurrence now highlighted. We have an icon there. It is also changed, and because I'm using here the SE field style, I'm changing the field style as well as then adding the icon in there. So that's one great way of actually customizing your form, your grid application. So for instance, I like to add here an extra field. So I'll go edit field and say, I'll call this one insert. We can add then, for instance, the insert edit delete here, and then basically here on record or within the method, I could then say the insert field now equals whatever I want it to be. So insert new item. Let's call it insert new item, and I could run that, and that would then be displayed on the insert field, which has now been added. And there we have it. So then, of course, within the grid application, I could then link that form or that field. So if I come here to create a new link, I can then select the field link, and here I then select the insert field, which I've just added, go next, and then I could link that, for instance, to the form application or the application that I want to use that will then function for that. So there I've just linked it to one of the demo forms I've just created. I'll go next and run, and then we can actually just see that really quickly here, that then we have now a link there, and that then takes us then to the application that we've defined here. So instead of using the default detail and edit or insert options, we can actually add our own fields in there also and customize the grid to various levels. So as I said, we had there the period. I'm going to go ahead and remove that one, and then we have this like so. So we have our recurrence, we have our yes. Let's go ahead and modify here then the insert field also. So I'm going to just go ahead on record again, and I will copy this, and in fact I'll cut it, and then I'll place it back here within the field styling method, and then here I will then also copy, say, one of these here options here. So we want the color as green, and we need to make sure that we specify the correct field and then run that. And then we have now a nice big fat green insert button back here, which we can then click and then open the relevant form that we want. Okay, so the final option really to customize our applications further than what we have done here is by including external libraries, which we can then go ahead and do. So I'll come here to Tools and External Libraries. We have here the Samples library, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and save that as, and for this project, and I'll call this one Demo. In fact, I'll call it Webinar. I'll save that. Scroll down, I will select to use the library and save the project libraries within our project folder. Okay, so now that's done, I can actually use this library within our project. If I come here to the edit option, we can then navigate the folder structure and file structure of the external library. Now here, for instance, I have the login, and what I want to do now is actually add a new login page that I want to add within the security. So I'll go ahead and select new file, and here I'll call it webinar.html and create. And then what I can do is then I can open that, and then from there I can paste in the HTML page that I want to apply. So here I have a specific login page that's been created for this webinar, and what is I'll save that. And then what I need to also apply is then the CSS style sheet. So in here I will again go new file, and again I will call it webinar.css, create that, and then I can come in here and customize the styling or add the style sheet as I need. I can save that also, and then I can come back here, and of course I could go ahead and add images in here also, specific images that we want to have displayed within this login page or elsewhere, or used within the applications that we have created here. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead now and start creating first of all the security, which will then use the new login page I've created. So I'll come here and create a new security. I'll choose the group security, choose the connection. I'll create the tables, I'll delete them if they're available, and let's protect the logged in users also. So I'll go next. The tables are then created. I don't have to worry about any of that. I can go next again. And then I can of course configure the various options here. So I'll check here the encryption first of all. I will create a menu. We will create a menu in part 3 of this webinar. Sorry, I wasn't going to mention that, but yes, there will be a part 3 in which we will add actually a custom menu, which will be in the following month. So here we're going to select then also the type of menu. So I'll select a standard menu. We have then the login that we can customize. We can customize all of these options that we want to have applied, but the main option I want here is the login template. And here I will choose to say, yes, I want to use an external library and login from. And as we already have the external libraries enabled, we don't need to enable that here. And we can see here the webinar external library that I have applied. So here I will choose the login webinar and go next. And go next again with the default login options, and go next again, and of course then we can generate the security files. So now while that's generating, it will then actually create all the files. We can go ahead and generate the source code also, so that all of the forms are actually ready to use and run. And then once that's generated, then we can check out our new login page. And of course, as with everything so far, we can change the styling of that with with simple CSS or basic CSS, and then check how that works. So then with the login page created, we can then actually customize this further or change the template. Of course, if we do choose, we can log in and start to use the project as we then need to. So then here within the application, we do have here the menu created, but as mentioned, within the next video we will go ahead and create a completely custom menu which we can then use within a project or within this project and apply that within your own as you see fit. And we can see here now that with the security created, all of our applications have also been updated. which is where security has basically been enabled now within each of these applications. So when it comes to customizing Scriptcase, we also have a few other options available. It doesn't exactly customize the styling or as such of our applications, but it does provide us more options. For instance, we have here within the main menu, Tools, and there we have API. Here we can then specify or create various APIs that we can use then within our projects. We also then have the hotkey templates, which we can then use within various applications. So here, for instance, I can create a new template, and that then allows me then to specify specific key bindings, which will then perform actions within our applications. So for instance, here for the form, if I click plus, I can specify the action first, and then I can choose the key binding I want to use for that specific task. So using the key bindings does leverage our application further and increase the power of each of the applications. So other than that, within our tools section, we do have the data dictionary, which is super powerful and allows us then to apply language keys to our applications. We do also have then help case, which we can create an inbuilt help system, allowing us to link those individual applications which we have created within Helpcase to each individual application, essentially providing an on the spot help and support system. With the external and internal libraries, we can apply further features and capabilities to Scriptcase. Use external scripts, which we have then applied to Scriptcase, such as the templates for the security system and theming and so forth. So before we finish up today, let's go ahead and modify the menu which we just put together with the security module, and we can tie everything together. We can add our applications, and we can also change the existing theme that we have on here. We will be adding a new menu in the next part of this webinar, which will be next month, but for now we're going to be using this one. Okay, so I'm going to first of all start by importing my applications. And then if I select them all here, I can then go ahead and import them. Okay, so with them all selected, I'm going to save it now and then select them again within the menu, and then I can adjust them in here and position them where I want them to. Okay, and then at the same time, if I want to have a organization, for instance, so a top layer, I can add an extra item here. I will save. Okay, and the reason why I'm saving is because sometimes if I actually add an item and then go ahead and make changes, it will make changes to another one, and it can get a little frustrating. So the best thing is when you make position changes and so on, always save your actions. Okay, so then here, for instance, I can add then say buttons, and then here what I'm going to do is position these three button items that we had, I'll move them up and then out so that they are now within their own segment. Buttons, then we have the blank drag and drop, the select input, the check radio, the city form, and the calendar, and then we can just go ahead, well, I'll save again, and then we can go ahead and just make some adjustments to the title of each of these. Of course I need to spell the names correctly. So inputs, and here we have then the drag and drops. Drag and drop, and here we just save buttons 1, buttons 2, and buttons 3. So I'll save that. And then here on the right hand side we can choose then the theme that we want to apply. So we have then various choices here to choose from. So I like this matte black, this is quite nice, so I'll choose this one. I will go ahead and run the application. and we will then have our new menu bar with all of our applications in here and links. So then I can open each application in here and check them out. Okay, so I want to go ahead and add a header to this. So considering we're doing styling and so on, so let's go ahead and check out the header and footer. So at the moment we're not displaying a header and footer, so I can actually enable that there. And we have the option of defining here a column 1, column 2, column 3. So if I come here to visual settings, and I have here first of all the header template, so we're using the line template. Okay, so as mentioned before, we have here the HTML templates. So if I come into HTML templates, and then here I can then create my own templates. So here I have a few that I've created previously. So here I have one with a header menu, a menu where somebody's not logged in, and just a basic header using Bootstrap. There are many others that are then also available, and of course you can make your own just by placing in your own HTML code and using the same code styling that we have here. So we'll have here the curly brackets which open and close, and then we basically define the element or the title of the item that we're actually including, so that we want to customize. So here, for instance, line 1, column 1 would be within the menu, and then here header footer, and then that would be here line 1, column 1 within your template. Okay, so I check here out the line. I believe it was the line we were using, and then line we have here then line 1, col 1, line 1, col 2, and line 1, col 3. Okay, so here we're actually applying the CSS, which is then included within Scriptcase. So if we want to apply the Scriptcase styling, then we need to include the CSS tags also. Okay, so then within the menu, I can then go ahead and change the header that I want to have applied. So say, for instance, I want to use one of these other ones that we have here. So I'll use the flat, for instance. I'll save that, and then back within the header and footer, I can then change the values that are available within that template. So here, for instance, I can say it's a date or a value, and then here, for instance, I can include a field value, a variable that I've defined, or anything else within this, or I could just type in some text. Okay, and then for the header, this field here, for instance, would then be tied to the title here. So we're actually defining here the title. Okay, and that would then displace this field here. So then if I then display then here, this is the title, and have here title selected, I can run that, and that will then display exactly that here. This is the title, and hello use on the right hand side. Okay, so furthermore, within the menu structure here, we can also add extra elements within our menu. So I'm going to drag a layer here onto the left hand side, and I'll drag one over here to the right. And then I'll just adjust here the center position to something that's a little more suitable, and I will go ahead and save, and then I can adjust what I want to have displayed within these layers. So here, for instance, in layer 1, I will just want to display an image, and here if I come in then to the image manager, I can then define an image here. So again, I will go here to my public images and choose here again the punkest face. If I add that, I can save that, and then here, well, let's go ahead and run that first of all. So if I run that, then we will have there the punkest here on the left hand side, and then on layer 1 we can, for instance, include a separate title, an extra title, a date, and also an image, a value, a library, or also a method. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to close that, and I'll come here to programming, and I will create here a new method, and here I will call this header right. So header underscore right. Okay, and then here I can then define some specific coding, or HTML, CSS, as well as of course PHP, using the macros and available tools within Scriptcase, and I can then place extra content within this layer on the right hand side. So then here on the extra layer, I'll then come here to type, and this time choose the method, and then I have now the header right here available. Okay, so now I'll save that, and then I can run, and then whatever I have coded now within this method would then be displayed here on the right hand side. So allowing us then to display user information or pretty much anything else. So here for the image, if I then inspect the image for instance, and as with the rest of the styling within Scriptcase, we can come to this image here and we can actually take out the class and we could style it according to however we want it styled. Or of course, we could change the image on upload within our form. Okay, so let's go ahead and run that. So in essence, this would be a complete form. We have our menu added. Any further customizations you could of course apply. We have a method here available and ready for your own personal code that you can insert in here. So for instance, if I just go echo, and here I'll just do a hello. If I could spell hello correctly today, and then run. And then we have here, well, of course, I've cut out here the PHP, so that should actually be at the top here. My bad. Or at the bottom. Let's place it down here. And as you see, in that section, of course, it will display as HTML. Okay, so here we're cutting out the PHP, we're stopping the PHP code, and we're restarting it again. And then we can actually continue with our PHP code or previous to this, depending on what it is that we want to display. And then, of course, we can display that here within our menu. Okay, so let's go ahead and generate our application. And one thing before we would actually want to make changes in here and finish our project off is we would probably more than likely want to specify our initial page. So I'll come here to properties, and then here within properties I'm going to choose my initial application, which would now be the app login. I would then save that, and then with that configured, I can then start to use the run project button at the top here to actually start the project. Okay, so then we can go ahead and generate all of our source code because we have all of our applications are still outdated, and then go generate, and then the project would be ready for deployment. Okay, so then we can either run the project from up here now, or of course run the project from here, the login application. Okay, and then we have our login page, and if I log in, we then have our menu and all of our applications. So that is just about all today for the Scriptcase styling. I do hope you have enjoyed this small mini session today. I do hope you are able to style your applications to the format as you want them, and are able to of course please your end users. So thank you very much for watching. Until next time, stay safe and have a good weekend all.